I'm just going to propose that we deal with this short item very quickly because it was something that we all agreed to several months ago, and because Councillor Turner was actually far more efficient than everyone else put together, that he got his amendments in early and they got lost. So would somebody like to second this for Andrew? Tim, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And the next item, I thought we should get some advice on the Northern Arterial, if that could be brought forward. So, Mike, I think you were going to give us some quick advice on that.
Another image, thanks, Chris.
So, actually, the Northern Arterial, the link and the Cranford Four. Is that the wording of the amendment?
Well, I think from our staff perspective,
that the Cranford Street Northern Arterial four-laning project. I've just called it the Northern Arterial.
Northern Arterial link, because the Northern Arterial is the government NZTA project, which we have no quarrel with or question about. We're not funding that. So if we can just...
Yes, but they're only funding it on the basis that we've got a four-laning project at the end of it.
Well, that's their decision, isn't it?
But it has been their decision all the way along.
Yeah, but we're not disputing their
part
of the project.
But the reason that they're proceeding is because this is on the budget. But let others tell the story.
So I think, Chris Gregory and Adam Taylor are here with me. They can talk to some of the detail. I'm just going to, I suppose, contextualise this again. So the Northern Arterial and the Cranford Street extension, as we would call it, which is what Pauline's referring to, they are inextricably linked, because when you look at the Northern Arterial, most of the benefits that actually derive in a transport and a network distribution sense derive from the link, from actually getting the vehicles across QE2 Drive and onto Cranford Street, and avoiding some of the problems that you get if you only develop the top half, which is the government's top half. And at this stage, and historically, the government have only committed to the top half on the basis that the link is actually put in place, because it's the link that actually generates the benefits, the big benefits. So we just need to put that into the context. Obviously, this is one of the RONs. This is one of the key roads of national significance. The others that we have in Christchurch have been the Southern Motorway, which obviously got built a number of years ago and was completed just after the earthquake. We're currently in the process of the Western Corridor, and those of you who travel that will know the work's ongoing on that. The Western Belfast Bypass has just been kicked off, and the Northern Arterial is probably the single largest project and one of the key projects in that. And it's a key project for council as well, because fundamentally it delivers a whole heap of benefits to the entire city. So particularly it starts to enable us to actually introduce bus priority and improved network matters along Main North Road, which you'll see there listed as currently as State Highway 74. So what it does is it relieves a whole lot of extraneous traffic off that part of the network, and basically enables the suburbs of Redwood and Northlands and Styx to basically access their local network much more effectively. It relieves roads like Papanui Road. It relieves roads like it helps us to manage traffic coming down Marston's Road in the future, with all the subdivisions coming off there. And in fact, Adam can inform you that a lot of the works and the intersections designs that we have already committed to and developed along Marston's Road are done in anticipation of the Northern Arterial and the Cranford link being delivered, because without that we are going to see increasing pressure on Marston's Road, both from traffic coming from the north and also from the new subdivisions that are coming on in the Prestons area in particular. So effectively what we've got is the Northern Arterial as a key part of both the government's arterial roading network, but also actually enabling us to deliver some of the benefits in terms of improved PT, reduced rat running in the city, and reduce pressure points on some of our key roads such as Papanui Road but also QE2 Drive. So it is a really fundamental part. Obviously, we've been in this process now for some considerable time. It's been on the books for many years. We finally managed to secure the purchase of the Cranford Basin at the end of 2013, I think, wasn't it, Jane, that we finally managed to secure that. That's enabled us not only to actually advance the link, which is a critical link, but also to address and use that basin for stormwater management purposes. So from a transport engineering, from a long-term planning perspective, the Northern Arterial and the Cranford Link, or the Cranford Extension, are critical delivery elements in the city's network. So that's a bit of an overview. I don't know whether Chris or Adam want to talk specifically about the implications of the route itself.
Okay, I can talk a wee bit. I guess in the first instance, we should probably think about how the network, the roading network in the north operates at the moment. And if you drive up there in the morning peak period, you'll notice the fact that there are significant problems starting to build on the network. We're noticing a lot of congestion on Main North Road and on Marston Road. And what's going to happen in the next few years, that situation is going to get an awful lot worse. And that's going to happen for a couple of reasons. In the first instance, as you all know, we're making changes to Marston Road, the Marston Road corridor there. We're signalising, putting traffic signals at a lot of intersections along that route. And by doing that, you're allowing traffic onto Marston Road from the side roads, but you are impinging that key north-south arterial function. And you see Marston Road there. So what will happen is the arterial capacity of Marston Road will diminish even if we do nothing with it. So we'll just basically, it'll get worse anyway if we do nothing. What will also happen, of course, is we'll have a situation that the development traffic will grow there as Preston's grows, maybe as Highfield grows, and other developments in the area grow as well. So there'll be increasing pressure on that network. So we're looking at a situation here where if we do nothing at all, we're going to have a very, very significant problems over and above what we see there on a regular basis today. So on that basis, you say, well, what do we need to introduce here? What do we need to actually build to solve this problem? And historically, going back 20, 30, 40 years, there's long been discussions about and the need for another motorway connection in from the north. By about 2002, the notion of the Northern Arterial with an extension at the end of it, we call it the Northern Arterial extension. That's the part of our road network that goes through Cranford Basin. That's the dotted bit at the bottom, that's right, yeah. Joining onto Cranford Street, which we would make changes to, and that's formerly known as the Cranford Street Upgrade. That was something that was developed in about 2002 through the NROS package and beyond that, the CNATI package of measures. So that's been around for about 15 years, we'll be considering that now. And we're moving to a situation now where we've gone through the planning process. That actually formally ended on the 22nd of June. The hearing dragged on for quite a while. There's a few issues we had to resolve, and that hearing was closed on the 22nd of June. So as we speak, the commissioners on that are making their deliberations and will report to us in mid-July on that. So we're expecting a decision on the formal designation of that corridor as the route. Now, in terms of the impacts that has on our network, it has some real big benefits for us on a region-wide basis. It certainly assists accessibility to North Canterbury, to the port and to the airport. It helps in that regard. It also has a lot of benefits for the north of our network as well. So we've already mentioned Main North Road and Marston Road, but it also has benefits on other parts of the roading network, on Russley Road, on places like Gardeners Road, because it basically provides a very, very attractive route. This is a route that people will be driving at a fairly high speed coming in there with very, very little interruption, if at all, compared to Marston Road and Main North Road, where they're constantly stopping at traffic lights. So what we will find is a lot of people will transfer onto that route, and that will move traffic off key north-south routes for us as well. What also happens is it also, to the south, if we make the connection through to Cranford Street, provides some benefits for some of our local roads as well. It provides good benefits for us in terms of attracting people off of Inners Road and people off the north end of Cranford Street as well. So it provides benefits in that regard as well. So it is providing a lot of benefits. Now, one thing that I'm sure Pauline will mention is that there are some disbenefits to it. We can admit that. It effectively focuses traffic onto the lower end of Cranford Street and increases traffic significantly there as well. And that's one of the things we've had to take into account in our assessments of that. But what we think we've done in that regard, we've obviously upgraded the infrastructure there by providing 4 lanes of traffic through that section. And we're also looking at what's called a downstream package of measures as well to ensure that beyond Inners Road, traffic stays on the key arterial, which is Cranford Street, and doesn't spill over into the surrounding residential streets. So we're heading for a situation where what we are doing is we're concentrating traffic on a route, on a single route, and by doing that, that provides us really critical opportunities to improve public transport on Main North Road, to improve development accessibility on Marshall Road, but it also provides us benefits as well in terms of ensuring that the Papua Nui parallel cycleway works. What effectively happens is, because we restrict the turning movements at McFadden's, a lot of traffic reduces on McFadden's Road, and therefore it assists the operation of the Papua Nui parallel cycleway for us. So what we're doing by spending this money on a single route for traffic, we're promoting modes on other routes available in from the north, and we're promoting this very multimodal approach to transport, and that's the basic science behind what we're doing.
Yeah, I think just if we look at that map above there too, you'll notice the grey areas. So they're all emerging residential development areas. So if we look at Highfield has got about, I think, when it happens, it's around 2,100. If no, it's still it's an if and it's a when, but if you work on an average, what do we work on? 10 movements?
You basically work on the assumption that you generate about 10 vehicle movements per day per household unit.
Yeah.
Now, if you take that, if you expand that across the entire north, you're probably looking at a situation though you're heading for about 9,000 new houses at some point over the next 30 to 40 years. So that's 90,000 more vehicle trips you can expect on our road network in that time, and that's a significant volume of traffic when you bear in mind something like Rickerton Road carries now about 25,000 vehicles a day. That's a lot of traffic to add to the network.
I'm a little confused because I thought that we were just going to have a quick update on why this amendment couldn't be moved at this time, whereas this sounds like we're making a decision on something we're not making a decision on until we get the full report to council.
So I think we were simply trying to background it. I mean, the issue really is that you've got the amendment is around removing the Cranford Street link. I think what we've tried to demonstrate is that the Cranford Street link sits as an integral part of the Northern Arterial. The Northern Arterial is a key part of our long-term transportation planning for the city. So you can't, in our view as staff, start to unstitch one element of it without actually starting to unwind the entire planning and modelling that's gone on.
I get that, but that's two different things. So I did understand that there was a technical problem with moving this amendment, not because of the impact on the whole project, but because it was still being considered by. We haven't had the final report of the commissioner that's hearing it.
That's right. Yeah.
So I thought that's why we had to leave it on budget in the meantime. But at the end of the day, we'll be making an ultimate decision when that report comes through.
Well, you'll get a recommendation from the commissioners. It's still council's decision about whether to accept that recommendation or not.
That's right.
At this stage.
But given that decision has to be made then, how on earth could we take it off the budget now if we don't know what that recommendation is going to be?
Well, I presume you technically could do anything, but I think it would send a very wrong signal, given that decision's still pending, to be making decisions about the budget now.
Well, it's more than a wrong signal. The question that I'm asking, and I guess that maybe I'm looking over this way for more of a legal or a finance response, is that in terms of the audit office, they know that we've got this recommendation that will come one way or the other from the commissioner. If we take it off the budget, we haven't prepared ourselves for the potential for making a decision to proceed.
Well, just in response to that, one of the things that was discussed to a degree at the hearing was the fact that legally the hearing shouldn't really be taking into account funding implications. That's something that was a legal point that was made to the commissioners. Now, I think Mike's right to a degree in as much that if in the middle of this deliberation period the commissioners were to hear that we had withdrawn funding for that, it may well influence their decision. And I think Mike's right in that regard. I think legally, I think it's a different position though.
Well, it's not what I understood to be the case.
Well, it would appear to me that if you're going to do leave yourself at risk of a challenge. I can't articulate exactly what that challenge would be, but if you change your process, if you decide to take it out of the budget without having the benefit of the funds for the commissioners report and education, you do leave yourself open to risk.
So you were saying that I mean, look, the thing is that people are going to vote to have it taken off or leave it on. And what I thought was that we were going to have a presentation as to why we couldn't legally address it at this stage. But if you're saying that legally we can address it at this stage, then we'll just have a vote as to whether to take it off or leave it on. What?
An amendment,
What?
deferral.
Yeah. I mean, certainly if we take it off, then it does expose us to judicial review, and certainly
Well,
does.
of course it does. But I mean, eh?
Well,
No,
except that you are in the middle of a process.
This has been down a long process, a hell of a lot longer than I've been around. Ali, what?
Thank you. Look, I think the key here is that there are some real concerns about the project, and now's not the time to bring these up and discuss them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so I think perhaps one of the reasons why there was a suggestion, apart from perhaps the money we might be able to save by removing it, but I think that was perhaps a way to park it so that we could look at some of the concerns and get them addressed. So I think this is a procedural issue as much as anything. I think what I want to ask is, is there a way of, I don't want this removed from the budget if it opens us up to legal challenge, but is there a way of somewhere in the process we are today acknowledging that we do have questions that still need answering, or is that outside what this session is today to sort?
Well, I'm surprised by the advice. So I thought that I thought I had been advised that there was a legal constraint on moving this amendment, which I thought that's what we were going to be briefed on.
That's what we're hearing. We're hearing if it is removed from the budget, it will open us up to potentially opens
but
us.
opening up to judicial review is a different thing, because that requires people to take action. So, but I thought that because of the position that we were in at the moment, awaiting the response of the Commissioner, that we would have an issue. So I don't know whether it would, whether Pauline, you'd be willing to look at just seeking further clarification on elements of the budget. I mean, I'm taking it off the budget. I mean, if you want to put it to a vote and we'll just see what happens, then fine. But
I'd rather, on the safe side, look at the timing of this. And my question is, do the staff know when NZTA is planning to complete the Northern Arterial?
So that I can address that one. So the current program for NZTA is to go out to start their tender process in November this year, and that's to engage a contractor under a competitive alliance with a view to starting construction of the project in September 2016 and having a 3-year construction period.
So to complete it in 2019.
But would it be financially sensible for us to consider jointly contracting for the whole project at once?
That's the current basis of the heads of agreement with NZTA, which is only a working agreement to say, based on where we've got to at this stage, we are in a joint project with NZTA, and that they would include these two sections in that contract to be tendered. They are fully aware of where the funding provision is currently in the draft LTP that's before Council, which is not until 2021-22.
Right.
And the next stage would be entering into a financial agreement with NZTA about how that would all work, but they're quite happy to go ahead.
Because they will contribute to it as well, won't they?
They will be, so for the City Council's part of the project, the funding rate will be somewhere around 50%.
Yeah.
Until we do the full calculation. Don't get the exact number, but it's around about 50-50.
Have we got that subsidy into our budget, or is our budget without that?
Well, this is the total, what's in the budget in front of you is the total expenditure, and the funding from NZTA will have been taken account of in the funding income to council as part of the financial strategy.
Right. So yeah, moving things doesn't necessarily capture the extent of the benefit that you would think. It's not the whole amount. Ali?
Two things here. There are two issues as I see them. One is the budget and the funding, and this is obviously to get the money out of there. The second one is the project itself and some of the questions that sit around it. Is that how you see the issues here as well?
I think that's how we understand it from councillors.
Right.
So I think there's two things. One is getting the designation in place is obviously an important step for us to demonstrate that we are intending to do a public work. That's what the purpose of the designation is. And in doing so, we also take financial responsibility for that work. So that's the key step. In terms of the matters of design detail, which may be what you're talking about, obviously, once we move from designation, while the engineers will have got some design work, there's certainly opportunity for us to go through that in detail again with council to ensure that any matters that are outstanding are addressed. So you have to separate the legal process for establishing the right to use the land for that activity versus the detailed designs that you need to do to address all the particular issues that emerge as you work through that. So
to keep the money on budget, and the issues with regards to downstream and what happens after Innes Road can be addressed further down the track.
Absolutely,
yeah. And so just some advice, just speaking to Jonathan, I suppose one of the issues that we do have is that if we do remove the budget, because one of the key tests in the RMA is that you take financial responsibility for a designation. So if we're seen to be removing the money now, we're actually undermining the whole rationale for why we would have a designation and that work. So that's a point I did miss. So thank you, Jonathan.
I'm actually getting a little bit nervous about the time. It's nearly 10 to 4 and we have to have a solution today in terms of some big issues that we have to debate. So is there an amendment that anyone wants?
Where is that currently on our budget? Sorry, I've left that upstairs.
2016.
No, 2022.
No, 2021, 22, 23. So it's spread over the 3 years. There's
So
lead-in
it doesn't
money.
start till 2021?
No, and there's no point moving
thank
it. There's no point moving it out any further. There isn't an amendment in front of us.
Well, we're asking questions to see whether we're able to put this amendment or not. Like whether I move this is dependent on the answer to the question I'm about to ask.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, time. All right?
Well, it's important we get this right.